Around the World Lit Audio 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel García Márquez. Chapter 5. Full Narration Script. Channel Intro. Welcome to Around the World Lit Audio, the greatest novels ever written, from every corner of the world, in English. New chapter every week, free to listen. Chapter Recap. In Chapter 4, a child named Rebecca arrived carrying her parents' bones in a canvas bag. She ate dirt behind the rose bushes. Aureliano made goldfish and visited Pilar Ternera. The eldest son José Arcadio disappeared with the gypsies. Ursula went after him, found not her son but a road connecting Macondo to the outside world. The first strangers arrived. Ursula built a bigger house, the house in which the Buendía family would live for the next 100 years. Chapter 5. Chapter 5. The priest arrived on a mule. His name was Father Nicanor Reyna. He was a young man, younger than a priest ought to look, with the kind of face that inspired confidence in people who wanted to be confident, and mild skepticism in people who were paying attention. He had been sent from the diocese to assess the spiritual condition of Macondo, which had grown from a small founding settlement into something that required, in the church's view, formal religious organization. He arrived to find a village that had been managing its spiritual life with considerable independence. Macondo had not had a priest before Father Nicanor. It had had God, or at least, the people of Macondo had their various relationships with divinity, conducted privately, without institutional mediation. They baptized their children when possible and prayed when they felt like it, and had the general relationship with religion of people who live far from authority and have developed the habit of deciding things for themselves. Father Nicanor intended to change this. He organized a mass. He built an altar in the square. He preached with the particular energy of a young priest, who has been given his first parish, and intends to make something of it. Macondo came, mostly out of curiosity. The sermon was about the love of God. It was a competent sermon, clear, well organized, touching on the major points in the appropriate order. Macondo listened politely. When it was over, the people of Macondo went back to what they had been doing. Father Nicanor tried harder. He organized additional masses. He arranged for the construction of a proper church. He visited families. He counseled the troubled and baptized the unbaptized, and performed the full range of priestly services with genuine dedication. He also, when all else failed, performed miracles. The miracle was this: after drinking a cup of hot chocolate, he would levitate. Not dramatically, not with wings or light or the theatrical apparatus of the supernatural. He simply rose from the ground, several inches, and hovered there for a moment, and then descended. It was quiet and specific and entirely impossible, and it was, Father Nicanor had discovered, much more effective than sermons at convincing people that God existed and that the church was worth taking seriously. The people of Macondo watched him levitate with the particular attention of people watching something they cannot explain and are not sure what to do with. José Arcadio Buendía watched him levitate and said, "That proves nothing about God. It proves only that the priest is lighter than air when he has drunk chocolate." Father Nicanor looked at him. José Arcadio Buendía had not been attending the masses. He had been conducting his own investigations, or rather, he had been conducting the particular investigation that had absorbed him for years now, the investigation into the nature of things, which had led him from astronomy to alchemy to various other disciplines, with the consistent result of not finding the answer but finding better questions. He was, in the view of his family, going mad. He was, in his own view, getting closer. It was around this time that Aureliano saw the girl. Her name was Remedios. She was the daughter of Don Apolinar Moscote, the new magistrate who had arrived in Macondo with the outside world, sent by the central government to establish official administration in the village. Don Apolinar Moscote was a small, careful man who understood that his authority depended on not being too obviously authoritative, and who had arrived with his family, and installed them in a modest house, and proceeded to govern with the minimum friction consistent with governing at all. He had several daughters. Remedios was the youngest. She was 9 years old. Aureliano saw her through a window when he went to discuss some administrative matter with the magistrate. She was standing in the doorway of the inner room, watching the conversation with the calm attention of a child who has learned to be quiet in adult situations. Something happened to Aureliano when he saw her. It was not what is usually called love at first sight, which is an instantaneous thing, electric and complete. It was something slower and more certain, the recognition of something he had not known he was looking for, which arrives not with excitement but with the settling feeling of a problem solved. He was 20 years old. She was 9. He went home. He told no one. He went to his workshop, and sat at his table with his goldfish and his tools, and thought about Remedios Moscote with the concentrated attention he usually reserved for his work. He went back the next day, and the day after that. He found reasons to visit the magistrate's house. Administrative matters, questions about the new regulations, various pretexts that were transparent to anyone paying attention, and that Don Apollinaire Moscow, who was paying attention, understood completely. The magistrate was not offended. He was, in fact, carefully neutral, the neutrality of a man who is calculating. The Buendía family was the founding family of Macondo. Aureliano was a serious young man of obvious ability. The age difference was considerable, but it was the kind of considerable that time would reduce. Remedios was 9 now, and in 3 or 4 years would be 12 or 13, which was the age at which girls in Macondo were considered marriageable. Don Apollinaire Moscow waited to see what Aureliano would do. What Aureliano did was ask to marry her. He went to the magistrate's house on a formal visit and presented himself, and stated his intentions. Don Apollinaire Moscow received him with appropriate seriousness, and said he would discuss the matter with his wife. The discussion was had. The answer came back, yes, on the condition that they wait until Remedios was old enough, which the Moscow family put at 12. Aureliano agreed to wait. He was 20 and she was 9, and he would wait 3 years, and this seemed to him entirely reasonable, the patience required by something worth waiting for. He told his mother. Ursula looked at him for a long moment. She said, "She is a child." He said, "I know. I will wait." Ursula said nothing further. She had the practical wisdom of a woman who has learned that certain things cannot be changed by saying so, and she turned her attention to what could be changed, which was the preparation, the arrangements, the practical questions of how a marriage between the Buendía family and the magistrate's family would work, what it would require, what it would mean for the household. She went to visit Remedios. Remedios had not yet started her monthly bleeding. She was a child in the most literal sense, playing with dolls, interested in animals, with the open face of someone who has not yet acquired the protective expressions of adulthood. She received Ursula with the polite curiosity of a child meeting an important adult. Ursula looked at her and felt something that was partly pity, and partly something else, the particular feeling of a woman recognizing in a child the future that is being arranged for her, the life that is already being decided by people who are larger than she is. She went home and began preparing her son's wedding. Meanwhile, José Arcadio Buendía had been getting worse. The word worse is perhaps not accurate. It implies a decline from a former state, whereas what was happening to José Arcadio Buendía was more like an acceleration in the direction he had always been moving. He talked to himself. He made calculations on scraps of paper and covered the walls with diagrams. He sat under the chestnut tree in the garden for long periods, not doing anything, simply sitting with the quality of someone listening for something very distant. He had conversations with Melquiades. This was notable because Melquiades was dead. The old gypsy had died, of some illness or perhaps simply of age, and had been buried properly, but he appeared to José Arcadio Buendía in the workshop, as real as any living person, and they spoke about things that José Arcadio Buendía would not report to anyone else. The family watched this and consulted each other and did not know what to do. Ursula made a decision. She organized the household. She managed the wedding preparations. She dealt with Father Nicanor and the magistrate and the various practical demands of a household in which the patriarch was talking to ghosts and the eldest son had disappeared with gypsies and the youngest son was waiting to marry a 9-year-old girl, and a foundling child was eating dirt in the garden. She managed all of it with the practical authority of a woman who has accepted that her life is going to be extraordinary, and has decided that extraordinary lives require extraordinary management. The wedding date was set. Remedios Moscow, at 12, became Remedios Buendía. She was married in the new church that Father Nicanor had organized, with the whole village attending, in the particular atmosphere of a Macondo celebration, the food and the music and the particular quality of festivity, in a place that had not yet lost its ability to celebrate without irony. Aureliano watched her come down the aisle, and felt the thing he had felt at the window 3 years earlier, quieter now, settled. The patience of waiting resolved into the patience of having. She was 12. He was 23. She was, by every measure, still a child. He was, by every measure, in love with her. Ursula had prepared Remedios for marriage in the practical way of a woman who believes that information is more useful than ignorance. She had explained certain things. Remedios had listened with the same calm attention she brought to everything. The marriage began. It was, against all probability, a happy one. Chapter Transition. You have reached the end of Chapter 5 of 100 Years of Solitude, by Gabriel García Márquez. In Chapter 6, Macondo continues to change and grow. The political world intrudes for the first time. The conflict between the liberal and conservative parties, that will define Colombian history for a century, begins to make itself felt in the village. And Aureliano, the quiet young man who made goldfish, and married a child and loved her, begins to transform into someone his family has not seen before, and will not be able to stop. Chapter 6 is available next week. Subscribe to Around the World Lit Audio so you never miss a chapter. A new chapter arrives every week.